Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Virtual Travel Escapes. I'm Rhonda Spihan, the leisure manager at Paul Travel, and my beautiful co-host, Julie Beckdash. Hi,
Thanks,
Julie.
Rhonda. Hi, Rhonda, and hi, everybody. Welcome.
Yes, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join our little web series where we have been exploring some amazing destinations and experiences, really from around the world to keep your travel dreams alive and maybe giving you a little bit of inspiration too. And I really hope that you find today quite interesting and maybe perhaps another place that you might add on to that bucket list, which I know has been growing and growing and growing with the anticipation of travel coming back. We all have our little lists. So now all of our webinars are being recorded, just like today and previously. So if you happen to have missed any of the great places Julie and I have showcased, please visit paultravel.com/webinars. We have a list of all of our previously recorded webinars there. So take a peek, there might be something of interest for you. Speaking of webinars, next week, we're actually featuring something a little bit different. It's a company called Family Twist. And what they will be doing is giving us some experiences for families that are interested in traveling in Europe. So it'll be quite interesting. So that's next Thursday, June 17th at 10 a.m. So a little bit earlier. So today, I know Julie and I are really quite excited to bring you the spectacular North. And really expedition travel has been and will be an extremely popular way to kind of see the world. And I believe that this expedition travel is honestly the best way to see the Arctic and really on these amazing small ship expeditions. So I hope you enjoy today and, again, get a little inspiration. Our North is pretty amazing. So it'll be great to kind of see that today. Now, any questions you have out there, please put them in the Q&A box or even in the chat box. No question will not go unanswered. Julie's going to monitor them throughout the presentation. So once it's done, we'll ensure all your questions get answered today. So Julie, I know for myself, this is on my bucket list. How about you?
Me too. Just this background is so inspiring. It's so peaceful and serene and such an incredible way to see a part of Canada you can't really see otherwise. So I'm really looking forward as well to the presentation today. So I will introduce our special guest. So Martin Aldrich, he is the Business Development Manager for Adventure Canada, and he travels all over the world presenting on Adventure Canada's small ship expedition cruising. And when he is aboard the Ocean Endeavor, which you'll learn about today, he's a Zodiac driver and a member of the expedition team. So he'll share some of his personal experiences and photos with us today. And just a little bit about Martin as well. He's originally born in Halifax, but he's living in North Vancouver where he joins us from today. And he has a keen eye for photography and he has a passion for physical fitness. And so thank you so much for joining us today, Martin. It's so nice to meet you and thanks for being with us. And I'll pass it over to you and you can take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Rhonda. Nice to be here. And welcome to all of our travelers here joining us. I'm going to just share my screen here quickly. And we should be all good to go. Okay, so welcome to Adventure Canada and Paul Travel's Arctic Expedition. We're going to be heading out into the sea ice, heading out into the Arctic. So again, I'm Martin Aldrich. I am a business development manager located in North Vancouver, and I'm an expedition guide. I actually started with Adventure Canada on board of the ship, and that is really one of my favorite places to be. I'm pictured there on the right in the Zodiac driving Centaurus, and this is in...
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Martin. I don't think we see your screen.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, there we go. It's coming. There we are.
Perfect. Okay, sorry about that. well, I'll backtrack. We're going to head out on an Arctic expedition, and we're here experiencing the Northern Lights. I'm Martin Aldrich, Business Development Manager and Expedition Guide, and here I am pictured on Centaurus. And this is one of my favorite places to be, having passengers step off my Zodiac and out onto the land, that sense of exhilaration and being able to experience a new place. I was lucky enough to join with my family back in 2015 when I first joined the company. They came on board for an Arctic expedition, and we're pictured here in 2018 on our North Atlantic saga. That's my mom and my aunt, and we were super excited because we'd just seen puffins for the first time. And Adventure Canada is all about family. This is the original founding members of Adventure Canada, pictured here. The company started in 1987. It was founded by Matthew Swan, his brother Bill, and their friend Dave Fries. And all the people pictured here are some of the original founding members and staff members that came on board back in the day. And you can actually see James Houston there, John Houston, and he's right next to David Suzuki. It is a family affair, a family company, and we're all about people. We're all about connecting people to places and to the land and to each other. And so here we are in Pond Inlet. That's Matthew Swan, and we always like to have a little bit of fun when we're in the communities, and he's presenting one of the locals in Pond Inlet a trophy for them beating us in a game of hockey. We like to play a few different sports in the communities that we visit. And the company is now run by the next generation of the Swan family. The legacy continues with Cedar on the left, Alana on the right, and Matthew James pictured in the middle. I'm super proud to work for a family-run Canadian company, especially an award-winning company. The few of the different awards are shown on the bottom there, and the middle one, #1 Best Adventure Cruise Line. We just were awarded that for the 4th year running. So super proud to be working for Adventure Canada. And you might wonder, well, where do we go? Well, we've already talked about the Arctic. I like this picture of North America from space. And if your eyes drift north where there are very few lights, that's where we go. We go off the beaten path. We're heading out into the unknown, really the places that bring expedition travel to life. And why do we go? Well, really, it's to embark on these journeys that we really believe are quite transformative and really embody the power of nature. And how do we go? When we're out on an expedition vessel. So we're out on the Ocean Endeavor. You see here pictured in the Northwest Passage. And it is an ice class vessel, so it allows us to go through ice and to do so safely. It's a double reinforced hull. You see us here following behind the Canadian Coast Guard, which is an ice class, an icebreaker, I should say. And the reason why we are behind an icebreaker is because we just went through full ice coverage in the Northwest Passage. This is from out of the Northwest Passage in 2018. So here's the Ocean Endeavor. That is a 198 passenger vessel, and you can see one of the Zodiacs pictured on the bottom left. So as an expedition company, we use Zodiacs to go from the ship to the shore. That allows us to get off onto the land as much as possible, and that's really what we're focused on. The ship is very comfortable and has a lot of modern amenities, but really the focus here is being able to experience the Arctic in its purest form, which is getting out into the land, going for hikes, using those Zodiacs to get even closer to the wonders of big ice, and of course to visit some remote communities like Pernavik here in Greenland. Of course, we're very much so focused on culture, and we have a curiosity for Inuit culture, and of course there's also lots of opportunity to meet locals and see how the Inuit people live. We of course have our expedition guides always on the lookout for wildlife as well, because we never know exactly what we're going to find. And there's a pretty good opportunity that we'll see some wildlife along the way, like this curious male polar bear. So just a brief intro there to Adventure Canada. I'm going to play a video now that will give you a day in the life on board of an expedition with Adventure Canada.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Time is currently 0600 on Saturday, August the 29th. Our current position is 74 degrees, 47 minutes north, 83 degrees, 15 minutes west. Outside temperature is sitting at 8 degrees Celsius or 46 degrees Fahrenheit. We have a wonderful day of glacier cruising, wildlife viewing, and hiking the Arctic tundra. It's time to get up and enjoy this beautiful landscape. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
You can read books, you can watch TV shows, but when you're out here on the tundra yourself, listening to people who really know what they're talking about, it's a whole different world.
That gives you a little bit of a sneak peek at what we do at Adventure Canada. Obviously, as we're on an expedition vessel, it is important to know exactly where your home will be for the duration of the expedition. So here's the Ocean Endeavour, and diving in, we have lots of lounge space. There are 3 different lounges that we operate in, and we have multiple presentations that are going to be occurring in those lounges. There are 3 bars. We have a library full of books, all pertaining to the regions that we visit. There's a dining room, and breakfast, lunch, and dinner are all included. There's 2 saunas, a hot tub, and a pool. It's really quite a nice way to spend time when we're not on the land. And there are 10 different cabin categories. You don't spend too much time in the cabin, it's because we're out on deck or out on the land as much as possible. And there's a lot of presentations in between as well. But you'll also notice here we have a solo traveler award. And that's because we have a number of single cabins that have a free single supplement. So we're up to about 25% of our cabins are free single supplement. That means that single travelers don't pay any extra. Here is another different set of cabins that we operate. And then when we are cruising between places, typically we're going to have presentations throughout on the deck, in the lobby, in the presentation rooms. There's lots of breakout sessions that happen. You can learn Inuktitut, you can learn from the professional photographers on board, you can hear from John Houston about the different art pieces that are there, or you can hang out in the hot tub, or just take in the vistas sitting down in one of the many areas on deck. We have a really large team on board. So you can see pictured on the bottom right would be the total number of passengers and staff. So there's just a little bit over 200 people there, with the staff included, about 30 to 35 Adventure Canada staff, resource staff, expedition guides. But we do really get down into small groups of about 7 to 10. So you're never really feeling like there are too many people. And especially on the Zodiacs, we're only about 9 or 10 per Zodiac. A great way to have a bit more of an intimate experience, and to be able to ask those resource staff questions about the botany that you're seeing, the animals you might be seeing, especially when we're out on the Zodiacs. So Zodiacs are really the best part of being on board of an expedition, in terms of being able to get to more remote places. So you can see here a Zodiac zipping across the screen on one of our Zodiac cruises, and it's just an incredible way to get around. You can really get right up to the icebergs that you're seeing, the little bergy bits. You can even hear them crackling because you're that close. I absolutely love being out on the water in a Zodiac. And our staff members will be there in the Zodiac, either driving or as one of the passengers on board, and relaying their specialty. So if we have a glaciologist, well, we have a glaciologist on board of all of the expeditions, and they're going to be there relaying their knowledge we hire specialists, so they come on just for one trip in the season. We're not hiring generalists. And when we have the glaciologists talking, they're going to actually be talking through their radio, talking to everybody on all of the different zodiacs. With 20 zodiacs on board, we can have everybody off the ship at the same time. So you're not waiting for your wave of in your group. We'll have everybody off at the same time. As I mentioned, we're getting out into the land as much as possible. We do this on our expedition landings. So we'll let everybody know prior to the expedition landing what the different options are. We'll have multiple different levels of intensity in terms of a short walk, a medium hike, and maybe a longer hike, but also we'll cater to different interest levels. So if you're more interested in hearing about the archaeology at the archaeology site, maybe you want to go out with the botanist and learn about the plants, or the ornithologist and look for birds. Those are all going to be laid out in advance, and all options and all included as well. So you can go out for the level of intensity hike or walk that you'd like to do. We will also head out into communities, as I mentioned. We hire locally for on board of the ship, so you're going to be traveling with Inuit staff, our culturalists, but we'll also hire locally in the communities that we visit as well. So they're going to be able to tell you about the place that they live in. They're going to show you around the place that they've grown up. They're going to be able to show you some of the traditional food that they have, and you can try, of course, the traditional food. And it's also a great way to support the community by checking out the arts and crafts, and of course, always a great place to then support the community by buying those arts and crafts. So there's just a little overview again of how we operate and what we do. This is the full season for 2022. You'll notice that there are quite a few trips, and they're all color coded, but they're also all run just once or twice per season. You can see all the different dates there on the left. This is quite a lot of information, so I don't expect you to absorb it all. That's why we're going to just focus on the Canadian Arctic in the north. So I'm just going to move forward to our Arctic map. So this is showing the 4 different expeditions that we do in the Canadian summer in the Arctic. This is starting July 21st and ending September 25th. So we have a 13-day trip called Heart of the Arctic. We have 2 high Arctic Explorer trips that are 12 days back to back. One goes west and the other goes east. And then we have a westward moving into the Northwest Passage. That is a 17-day expedition, and a 17-day out of the Northwest Passage that goes to the east. So they're all a little different. And the most important thing here to know is that while these are our intended itineraries, they will change. And that has a lot to do with the sea ice conditions, wildlife spotting. We will divert our course to go towards the wildlife to make sure that we get the best possible trip for our passengers. And the other thing to note here is each of those dots are just some of the highlights that we're going to cover. We really try to get off the ship at least once, often twice a day, to visit as many places as possible. Again, that ship is a great means of transportation, but the focus is to get out into the land, into the communities, and to experience everything that the Arctic has to offer. So jumping forward to the heart of the Arctic, we have our 13-day trip that's focused on Inuit art and culture. So we have many community visits on southern Baffin Island, in Kimmirut and Kinggate, as well as Iqaluit. We're going to stop into Ungava Bay, and I'm going to highlight Ungava Bay for this trip in just a moment. We do cross over the Davis Strait, so we do have a day at sea here, and then we have 3 different locations we stop in Greenland. Our high Arctic Explorer will be above the Arctic Circle for the entirety of the expedition, whereas the heart of the Arctic is below. We are going to start this trip in Kangerlussuaq in Greenland and finish in Resolute. And this trip is 12 days. And then the return trip, 12 days, will be from Resolute to Kangerlussuaq. I should also mention that all of these expeditions that I'm talking about all have associated charter flights that are private for Adventure Canada. We fly our guests up from either Ottawa or Toronto, just depending on where we're boarding the Ocean Endeavour, our ship. The 2 big expeditions that we offer, the into and out of the Northwest Passage, are 17 days. These 2 trips are really covering the entirety of the Northwest Passage, and I'm just showing the differences between the 2 trips here, and I'm going to cover some of the places on these 2 trips that you wouldn't see on Heart of the Arctic or High Arctic Explorer a little bit. So I've used a number of my own photos coming up in some of my videos as well. You've already seen a couple of my videos that I've taken, often just with my iPhone, but I also use a Sony camera as well with a big zoom. So let's dive in and see what it's like to be in the Canadian Arctic. One of my favorite places from heart of the Arctic is Akpatak Island. This is in Ungava Bay, so just south of Iqaluit, just to the west of the Torngat Mountains. And Akpatak Island is predominantly a limestone island. It's actually quite large, about 900 square kilometers. And it is uninhabited, except for by murs and polar bears. So Akpat actually means thick-billed mur. So that is why the island is called Akpatak Island, because of the thick-billed murs that nest here each year. There's actually about 4.5% of the world's population of thick-billed murs out on the island. And those polar bears certainly know that those tasty treats are there. So the polar bears are actually on these cliffs hunting for those thick-billed murs. And polar bears are not always on the land. They're often out on the sea ice. That's their main place that they like to be to hunt seals. And these are just a few of the shots that I took on Heart of the Arctic in 2017 when we saw a mum and a 2.5-year-old cub out on the sea ice. They were with us for quite a while, a little over an hour. Really, really quite a spectacular viewing. And those are just a couple of the photos that I took while we were hanging out there. So I covered Akpatak Island, just as I mentioned, in Ungava Bay. And then let's head a little bit further north and let's go up to Beechey Island. So this location is actually going to be part of Into, Out of, and High Arctic Explorer. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it is quite an interesting history for this island. It's quite a stark place. You can see the graves there and the remains of Northumberland House. This is actually where Sir John Franklin, the British explorer, first overwintered in 1845. So this was supposed to be the expedition to first go through the Northwest Passage, and they were never heard from after they left Greenland. This was Beechey Island was the first location that there was any evidence of Franklin's men. There were shallow graves for 3 of the sailors that perished in that first winter, and there's also a 4th grave from one of the sailors that actually was there on a subsequent expedition to rescue Franklin's men. So the HMS Terror and the HMS Erebus, when those 2 ships were found in about 2014 and 2016, just south of this location. But that wasn't really until 2014 and 15 and 16 that they actually knew where these ships had ended up. So when you're there, you can see the remains of the cans. This is the modern technology at the time that they were eating out of canned food, out of canned goods, and it really can change quite dramatically there. I've been there on Out of the Northwest Passage, and it's been completely covered in snow. I've been there, and the Arctic poppies are blooming on High Arctic Explorer, and everything in between. It really just kind of drives home what it would be like to be there in the middle of the winter. We're there at the height of the summer, and we still get snow fairly frequently. Now you may think, oh man, the Arctic, it must be cold. This is a particularly cold area. We're typically in and around 5 to 8 degrees Celsius at Beechey Island, but our average temperatures for our early Arctic trips are going to be about 12 to 15 degrees Celsius. I've had up to 20 in southern Greenland. It's a bit warmer there, but certainly on Out of the Northwest Passage as we get later in the season, it can be a little cooler, like you see our passengers here out on the long hike. This was a day where it was snowing. It was about 0. It doesn't typically get much cooler than about 0 Celsius, that is, so 32 Fahrenheit. But it is certainly important to be prepared. So another location up in Lancaster Sounds, that opening to the Northwest Passage, would be Croker Bay. This is a really fantastic place to see the differences really between Greenland and the Canadian Arctic. We have a tidewater glacier here. This is the Tidewater Glacier you can see as we were approaching. This is a photo that I took on my very first time in 2015, approaching Croker Bay and the glacier there. It's a fantastic spot to get out for a Zodiac cruise. We often will have barbecue lunch here. We'll often do our polar dip, and it's quite exhilarating to jump into the Arctic Ocean. We can also, you can also rent kayaks and get even a little bit closer to the water and a little closer to the sea ice as well. In 2018, we had a fantastic viewing of a mom and two 1.5-year-old cubs. They were quite small. We actually didn't notice the second and third set of eyes. We just saw a margarine spot on a light blue iceberg, and we realized that it must be a polar bear. And as we got closer, we saw an extra set of eyes and then a third set. And we had quite a lovely little viewing of these spectacular animals. So that's Croker Bay up on Devon Island. And Devon Island is the largest uninhabited island in the world, home to many polar bears though. If we head over to Greenland, we can touch into a location that's really, really spectacular, which is Ilulissat. And this is another UNESCO World Heritage Site. So Ilulissat in Greenland is one of the fastest moving glaciers in the world. In fact, it is the fastest moving glacier outside of Antarctica. You're going to see the largest icebergs likely that you'll see in your life unless you go to Antarctica. It is absolutely immense, the amount of ice that is pushed out of this fjord every single year. We have a full day here. We'll be getting into the community and walking to the UNESCO World Heritage Site, but we'll also do a Zodiac cruise so you can get close to those icebergs from the water as well. The whales here, the humpback whales, know about the richness of the water in this area, and so they're feeding, and we will definitely be keeping an eye out for the humpback whales and hopefully get a viewing as we're on our Zodiac cruise. Yeah, so here's another view from the boardwalk in the UNESCO site. It's Jakobshavn Glacier. It's about 40 kilometers up the fjord. So you're actually just seeing the icebergs that have calved off 40 kilometers up the fjord. They're stuck on a moraine, and that's where that nutrient-rich water is from the glacial till. This is about 250,000-year-old ice, so just some young ice there. And it's about 20 billion tons that calves off here out of Jakobshavn Glacier. So kind of mind-boggling, 20 to 35 meters per day calves off of the front of the glacier. Just an incredible amount of ice. So that's Ilulissat. If we head north on our Northwest Passage trips, we have some locations that aren't as easily accessible, and they are really on these Northwest Passage trips because we have a very short window to be able to get up into the far north. So we really base our entire season around the ability to get into the Northwest Passage and back out, and that happens really in just late August into September. It's about a 4 to 6 week window, so it's certainly not a very long period of time. We can get into the Arctic in late July, but we're not getting into that Northwest Passage area, Prince Regent Inlet, and especially McClintock Channel, which is shown over here. Those are really inaccessible until mid to late August. So if we head up to Isuitaq, Grise Fjord, Canada's northernmost community here. This is a really special place to visit. This is Canada's most northerly community. 130 people or so live here. We try to get here every year. It's not always possible based on the sea ice conditions, but we always do try. When I was there for a couple of times in 2015, 16, and 17, we had a really warm welcome. It's an interesting place to walk around. And actually, my first year, I made a friend, Jimmy Kapik, in the community, and he added me on Facebook. And it's always really interesting every year to see his pictures of the last time they're seeing the sun for the year in November. And then he posts a photo up or a video up in February when they're starting to see, late February, when they're starting to see the sun again. Those are the kind of connections that you get when you come on board with Adventure Canada, the kind of places you get to see. It's really quite spectacular. Cobourg Island is just to the south of Grise Fjord. So Grise Fjord is on Ellesmere Island. That's the big island at the top of the archipelago of Nunavut. Cobourg Island is home to over 2 million birds. And so we do a Zodiac cruise here to see all of the different thick-billed murres, kittiwakes, and puffins that nest on the cliff edge here at Cobourg Island. And you saw that I had a big circle around that northern area. We also have a really spectacular spot in Greenland called Ita. that we go to. Really quite dramatic landscape, very vivid colors on the rock here. We also have a very good opportunity of seeing muskox, those prehistoric animals. It's one of the places that does feel quite surreal when you're there. We walk along, after a 45-minute zodiac transfer in, we then walk for about 45 minutes into a little glacial lake, and we can actually go right up to the glacier there and touch it. We have a lunch sitting at the glacier tongue, and we often see Arctic hare, Arctic fox, and gyrfalcon here, as well as muskox. And this is another shot that I took as we headed from Ita out across towards Canada. So this is going from Greenland over to Ellesmere Island. And this is the Ellesmere Island ice cap that you can see spilling down and out into the ocean. I absolutely love this photo. It's just such a magical moment that I remember so vividly from being on board. And it's one of those places that is, quite remote. You're about 79.2 degrees north. You're going from Greenland, you can actually see Ellesmere Island, and the same is true in reverse. When you're at Ellesmere, you can see Greenland. Yeah, definitely a place to try and visit if you can. So that was that most northerly portion of Out of the Northwest Passage. And then just a couple locations that I wanted to point out. You'll notice here circled is a little gap in between the Boothia Peninsula and Somerset Island to the north. And this is where we go through Bellot Strait. And this is a very integral part of the Northwest Passage. This is very strong currents in this location, so you do have to time it well to get through. But at the eastern side of Bellot Strait is Fort Ross. And this is the last built Hudson's Bay Company outpost. And you can actually walk up to this building. You can check it out, take a look inside. It is quite interesting to see, feels quite remote. And this is actually still used by scientists. So when they are doing research in the area, they do actually still stay in this building. If you are wondering why the windows are boarded up, they're boarded up and it looks like it was a very poor carpentry job because all of the nails are sticking outwards and very haphazardly. That's because that's protection from polar bears. Lots of polar bears in this area. Sometimes we actually will show up on the ship and have a polar bear sitting right out front of this building. Of course, we're there in their territory, and that's why our itineraries do change, because not just spotting wildlife, but also making sure that we don't disturb the wildlife. Another really spectacular location that is so nice, they pretty well spelt it twice, is Uummannaq. And Uummannaq is in Greenland, in Uummannaq Fjord. This is a shot that I took when I was there for the first time in 2015. You can see the immensity of the ice in the background there. Our ship, the Ocean Endeavour, is 137 meters long, and that iceberg is surely much larger in behind. And remember the 90-10 rule, 90% of that iceberg is underwater. Absolutely amazing. And that iceberg is almost guaranteed to have come from a Ilulissat. About 90% or 9 out of 10 of the icebergs that come out of Ilulissat are the ones that are found in the North Atlantic, very likely off the coast of Newfoundland. That's how many icebergs are formed in that Jakobshavn Glacier. They follow up the coast of Greenland, they go down the coast of Baffin Island and Labrador, and I like to think that Newfoundland kicks them out into the Atlantic. And that full transit can take up to about 2.5 years on average. When I was walking through the community for the first time, I was just completely enthralled, seeing how the locals dry their Arctic char. The Arctic, while you do think of it as being cool, and it is certainly cold at times, is actually mostly a desert. There's actually not too much precipitation in most places. So you have very dry air. So bring your moisturizer and your lip balm, but also look out for the locals drying their Arctic char. They can just catch the fish and dry it right outside. These are a couple of the shots that I took again on my first time. I had a little bit more free time in my first season. I certainly was busy. I'm busier and busier these days. And so these are just a few of the shots that I took. I had a little local boy come up to me and tug on my jacket and say, he actually asked me to take a photograph of him, and I think he was quite proud of his cap gun. And then just a little bit further along on my walk, I saw, I think, the only cat in Greenland, pictured on the right there. Umanak, the name Umanak actually means heart shape. And it's named for the heart-shaped mountain that's in behind the community. It's actually quite tall. It's a little over 1,100 meters in height. And this Umanak is really a haven for Inuit culture in Greenland. Very proud locals. Many of the locals do come here as essentially a central place for trading goods. And it's really beautiful, as you can tell. Often sea ice in the harbor. We will almost always visit this on the out of and into the Northwest Passage expeditions. And speaking of out of the Northwest Passage, this trip is one of the best opportunities to see the Northern Light in our season. The Northern Lights are going to be hard to see in the height of the summer. So in our Heart of the Arctic expedition, we're actually looking at more like 24 hours, 22 hours of sunlight. When we get towards September, at the equinox, we're going to be 12 hours a day and 12 hours of night. And so we have enough darkness that we can actually see, quite likely see the Northern Lights. And that would typically be in Kangerlussuaq Fjord. So this circle here is actually from Umanak. This is where Umanak is in Umanak Fjord. And Kangerlussuaq Fjord is at the very bottom, and that's where we finish the expedition. So I have another video for you here, and this is from our Out of the Northwest Passage expedition. This one is definitely worth tuning into, and I'll just go ahead and play it right now. What an incredibly inspiring video. Gives me chills every time I see it. So I hope that gives you a nice little overview. I obviously could talk a lot longer about all the different locations here. I've been on 13 different expeditions in the Canadian Arctic with Adventure Canada over the last 6 years, well, except for last year. And happy to answer any questions that you might have. Certainly inquire with Paul Travel. They're going to be your great resource for finding out a little bit more about what we offer. And they do have an exclusive promotion for booking with Adventure and Adventure Canada. So certainly contact them to find out more. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great day.
That's great. Thank you so much, Martin. That was very inspiring and just gorgeous. I will see if anybody has any questions. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Are there any rules when you're in the Zodiac and say you were coming up to like, a whale, or if you were on land and there was polar bear in the distance, is there a rule on how close you can get?
Absolutely, there is. Yeah. We have a rule of 100 meters for any wildlife. and that would be the closest we could possibly go. Typically, we stay further away from the wildlife than that to be safe, of course, especially with polar bears. They can swim very quickly in the water. And then with wildlife, that's one thing, and one of the biggest risks is actually icebergs, because they can roll over, they can calve off. So it's actually even a little bit further away for icebergs, about 300 meters. So quite a distance.
Okay. And when those icebergs are calving, can it be quite loud? Like, does it sound like thunder, or what does it sound like?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it can be. You do have to be, quite patient. It isn't always just happening everywhere you go. Probably one of the best things to do is to just be actually out on deck as we're cruising between locations. That's probably the best time to see icebergs roll. We're not in too many locations where they're going to be calving off of the glacier front, but it is still possible to see that. But yeah, it can be loud. Mostly what you'll hear as large sounds or big sounds will be in Ilulissat, and it'll be like a sound like a shotgun, and it's as if a shotgun's going off, and that's when the icebergs are actually cracking, and they're not falling apart. They're just actually cracking.
Oh, neat. Okay. Oh, that's so cool. Well, that's great. I don't know, Rhonda, if you have any questions. I think we're just all in awe. Everyone loves your photos. So thank you so much. Thanks for everyone's comments on the presentation. We're so glad we can bring this to you. But I think otherwise we'll wrap it up. But that was just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, fantastic, Martin. And it really kind of showcased a little bit of the cultural aspect of it as well. I love the animals, that's no doubt about it, but just to see a little bit of the communities up north, and I love that. It just looks so fascinating and very inspiring. These pictures were like, wow. Yeah. So thank you for sharing so much.
Oh, no problem.
Martin, just one question we have from Carol. Do you still go to Sable Island?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
That's a great question. It wouldn't be on one of our Arctic itineraries.
Right.
It is off the coast of Nova Scotia. We go there on our Atlantic Canada Explorer expedition. So that's we used to do a Sable Island trip that was specific to going to Sable Island, but we actually include 2 days at Sable Island on our Atlantic Canada Explorer expedition, and that runs next year.
Okay, great. Yeah. She said they've gone and they loved it a few years ago. So that's great.
Yeah,
Good.
wonderful.
Good. Well, thank you again, Martin. Thank you everyone for being with us. We love seeing your names, and we love, wish we could see your faces, but we love knowing that you're here enjoying this with us. So I wish you all a wonderful afternoon and evening, and we hope to see you again next week. Thanks, Martin. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Good night, everybody. Good night. Bye.